Imagine catching your partner cheating. Now instead of confronting them, you build an inescapable trap and invite all of your friends and colleagues to come and witness their shame. That is exactly what one Greek god did when he discovered his wife was having an affair with his brother. What's up everyone, my name is Jason and I've combined every mythology into a single shared universe for my books, and trust me when I say that divine drama is the best drama. Today on Myth HQ we're talking about Hephaestus and how this god of craftsmen delivered two of the most cold, calculated, and publicly humiliating acts of revenge in all mythology. Our story begins not with Hephaestus, but with Zeus and Athena. After Zeus swallowed his first wife to prevent a prophecy, he developed a godly migraine that ended with Athena, the goddess of wisdom, bursting fully formed from his skull. While most of Olympus celebrated this bizarre new arrival, Zeus's current wife, Hera, was furious. Not that Zeus had a child from a previous relationship, but that he had seemingly created life all by himself. So in an act of pure, spiteful one-upmanship, she decided to do the same. Hera conceived a child entirely on her own through sheer force of will, but when the baby was born, she was horrified. The child wasn't the perfect, beautiful Olympian she had envisioned. He was small, red, screaming, and worst of all, he was born lame with deformed feet. This was Hephaestus. Ashamed of what she had created and seeing him as a mark of her own failure, Hera did what any loving mother would do, as she threw him off Mount Olympus. The infant god fell for an entire day before crashing into the ocean, but he didn't die. He was found by two sea goddesses, Thetis and Eurynome, who took pity on him. They raised him in their secret underwater grotto, hidden from the judgmental eyes of the gods who had discarded him. It was there, surrounded by rock and sea, that Hephaestus discovered his true calling. He began to work with metal and stone, and soon realized he had an unparalleled gift. He forged beautiful jewelry for his foster mothers, his skill growing with each passing day, and as his skills sharpened, so did his anger. For 9 years he honed his craft and his rage, waiting for the perfect moment to remind Olympus of the son they threw away. Hephaestus's plan wasn't one of violent rage, it was a masterpiece of cold, calculated revenge. He decided to send his mother a gift, a peace offering. He constructed a magnificent golden throne, so beautiful and intricately designed that it was fit for the queen of the heavens. It was adorned with precious gems and depicted scenes from Hera's life, designed to appeal directly to her vanity. Hephaestus knew his mother well. The throne was delivered to Olympus, and Hera, flattered by the apparent tribute, proudly claimed it. But the moment she sat down, the throne's true purpose was revealed. Invisible chains, masterfully woven into the design, sprang out and bound her fast. She was completely immobilized, her divine strength useless against her son's perfect engineering. Panic erupted. The other Olympians rushed to help, but nothing worked. Ares, the god of war, tried to smash the chains with his brute force, but they wouldn't even dent. Athena, goddess of wisdom, studied the mechanism, but couldn't solve its puzzle. The craftsmanship was so advanced that it was beyond their comprehension. Hephaestus had created something the gods couldn't unmake. Realizing only the creator could free their queen, the gods sent messengers to Hephaestus. He refused, sending back a simple chilling message, "I have no mother." Desperate, they sent Ares to drag him back by force. The god of war stormed into Hephaestus's forge on the island of Lemnos, expecting to easily overpower the lame smith. Instead, Hephaestus unleashed the full fury of his workshop, blasting Ares with jets of fire and showers of molten metal. The mighty war god fled in humiliating defeat, proving that a brilliant mind and a hot forge are more than a match for a big sword. Now, as a quick detour, I try to keep these videos free of sponsors or mid-roll ads, mostly because ads are annoying and I'm totally self-funded. What I do have, though, I think is something that I built for myself that I think you'll like. It's my fantasy all-access library. It's where you can get all of my mythology-inspired fantasy novels that my team and I have written, all set in a huge shared universe where every pantheon coexists. It's how I fund this channel, so if you're interested, you can check it out at the link in the description. With force and diplomacy having failed spectacularly, the gods were at a loss. But then an unlikely hero stepped forward, Dionysus, the god of wine and revelry. Dionysus, an outsider himself, who was also despised by Hera, understood Hephaestus. He didn't approach the angry smith with threats or empty promises, instead he came with wine. The two gods sat and drank together. Dionysus listened to Hephaestus' story, validating his anger and sharing his own tales of Hera's persecution. He created a bond built on shared trauma and a lot of very good wine. As Hephaestus grew drunker, Dionysus laid out the god's final offer. Not a command, but a deal. If Hephaestus returned and freed Hera, he would be given a permanent seat on Olympus, his own grand forge, and the hand of the most beautiful goddess of all, Aphrodite, in marriage. It was an offer Hephaestus couldn't refuse. It was everything he'd been denied: acceptance, status, and a prize that would ultimately prove his worth to everyone. So, utterly intoxicated, Hephaestus agreed. Dionysus, never one to miss a flair for the dramatic, didn't just teleport him back. He paraded a drunken Hephaestus to Olympus on the back of a donkey, surrounded by a procession of cheering satyrs. It was a bizarre, triumphant parade, the rejected cripple returning not as a prisoner, but as a conquering hero. He freed his mother, and in that moment Hephaestus cemented his place among the gods. Hera was humiliated, but she had no choice but to accept him. Hephaestus was now an Olympian, married to the goddess of beauty. It was a picture-perfect ending, except it wasn't, not even close. The marriage between Hephaestus and Aphrodite was a political transaction. He got a beautiful wife to prove his status, and Zeus got a troublesome goddess off the market. Aphrodite, however, was appalled. She was the goddess of love and beauty, and she was being married off to the lame, soot-covered blacksmith. She had been carrying on a passionate affair with Ares, the handsome and powerful god of war, and she had no intention of stopping. The two lovers would meet in secret whenever Hephaestus was busy in his forge, but you can't keep secrets forever on Olympus. Helios, the all-seeing sun god, saw their affair and decided to tell Hephaestus. The blacksmith god was heartbroken, but once again he channeled his pain not into blind rage, but into craftsmanship. A physical confrontation with Ares was suicide. A public accusation without proof was pointless, so he returned to his forge and created his second great instrument of revenge. He forged a net, but this was no ordinary net. It was made of chains as fine as a spider's web, yet stronger than any metal and completely invisible to the eye. Hephaestus discreetly hung this net over his marriage bed, rigging it to a sophisticated trigger. And then he announced to Aphrodite that he was leaving for a long trip to his favorite island of Lemnos. The moment Ares saw him leave, he rushed to Aphrodite's side. The lovers, thinking they were alone and safe, fell into bed. At that exact moment, the invisible net sprang, instantly entangling them in their embrace. They were trapped, naked, and helpless. But catching them wasn't enough. Hephaestus wanted public vindication. He threw open the doors and invited all of the male gods of Olympus to come and witness the spectacle. The gods arrived and broke out in laughter. There was the mighty Ares, god of war, and the beautiful Aphrodite, goddess of desire, caught like a fish in a net by the clever craftsmen they had both disdained. The humiliation was absolute. Eventually, Poseidon stepped in and negotiated their release, personally guaranteeing that Ares would pay Hephaestus a hefty fine for his transgression. Once freed, Ares fled to Thrace and Aphrodite to her temple in Phos, both deeply shamed. Hephaestus had once again used his intellect to deliver a precise and devastating revenge. These stories are more than just divine soap opera. They reveal something profound about ancient Greek values and the nature of power. The Olympians were defined by physical perfection and strength, and Hephaestus, being the only disabled god, was a walking contradiction to this ideal. His very existence challenged the idea of what it meant to be divine, and some scholars even think his myth reflects the reality of ancient blacksmiths, who often suffered physical ailments and even lameness from arsenic poisoning in the bronze-making process. Their invaluable skill made them essential, but their bodies paid the price. Hephaestus' power wasn't in his body, it was in his mind and his hands. He was the master craftsman who armed the gods, built their palaces, and even created automatons, gold and bronze servants that were essentially the first robots in Western literature. He even sculpted Pandora, the first woman. His power was technology and intellect, and his revenge plots highlight this. He never used brute force. Against Hera, he used vanity and mechanics. Against Ares, he used deception and engineering, and his revenge was a form of poetic justice. He made Hera feel trapped and helpless, just as he had been when she had cast him out. He turned the lovers' private act into a public spectacle, exposing their shame just as they had shamed him. Hephaestus proved that the true power isn't always about being the strongest or the most beautiful, but about being the smartest person in the room. If you enjoyed diving deep into this kind of mythology and want more stories that connect all these ancient worlds, you should definitely check out my community group, the Fantasy All Access Library. It's a group hosted on a platform called School, where you get access to all of my mythology-inspired books, both ebooks and audiobooks, plus at least one brand new novel every single month. We also do weekly live calls where we talk about mythology and basically any kind of nerd stuff that you might be interested in. It's an amazing community of fellow mythology and fantasy fans, and if that sounds cool to you, the link is in the description below.